I think the vast majority of criticism against Luka Doncic this season has been warranted, right? The lack of effort on the defensive end of the floor, the carelessness with the ball on the offensive end of the floor that leads to some terrible turnovers, the inconsistency in his shooting efficiency at times, and his decision making in shooting a lot of jump shots when he should be getting downhill at times. I get it. He is the offensive backbone of our team, which is very fatiguing and thus leads to settling at times. But still, I think there are moments where he could be more aggressive getting downhill, et cetera, right? We could go down the list. But with that being said, when we start getting into player comparisons, we have to be more objective than we have been regarding Luka. And it feels like over the past year and a half, he has steadily been getting demoted game after game. Anytime there's a bad stretch of basketball with the Lakers or what have you, right? Like all of a sudden, he's not even a top 5 to 7 player in the NBA anymore, right? I've saw over the past week or so, Jeff Teague say both Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham are better than him. I saw a debate today talking about Jalen Brunson being better than him. And these guys have played better than him in pockets. But I think if we're going to say a player is outright better than him, then we have to be objective about the situation. And what I mean by that is literally pretty much every superstar in the NBA today, outside of Giannis probably, is in a much better, objectively just a much better situation for their play style with the supporting cast that they have than Luka Doncic is, right? I'm a Lakers fan. I watch like 90% of the games. The truth is the roster construction is not built for Luka Doncic as a star, and he's one of the only stars who is dealing with this to this degree, right? I think it's him and Giannis, right? So let's go down the list. Cade Cunningham has one of the best defenses in the NBA behind him. Yes, their offense can be inconsistent at times, but he has a defense that supports him well enough to where he could be the offensive driver, and then everything else kind of falls into place. Anthony Edwards has Rudy Gobert as his rim defender, and if we are being honest, over the past 10 seasons, Rudy Gobert has been the most consistent, most reliable help side defender in the NBA. The only person who's probably better than him right now is Victor Wembanyama. But in terms of reliability and consistency in the regular season, there's not a player who's been more reliable than Rudy Gobert. Not to mention, Anthony Edwards has shot makers behind him. He has athletes on the perimeter who can defend and keep guys in front. Just a better roster configuration. Shea has one of the best defenses ever behind him. And on the offensive end of the floor, he has a ton of shot makers and a ton of guys who can do a variety of different things like get downhill, make plays, make shots. You can go down the list. Joker has pretty much the perfect team for him assembled around him, right? You can see Jalen Brunson with a big and cat who can shoot the long ball, stretch the floor, with guys like Mikal Bridges, with OG Anunoby who can defend, a guy in Josh Hart who's a Swiss Army knife, and all these guys cover up a lot of his worst flaws. You can see how I go down the list, right? All of these teams have, and their superstars, fill in their gaps really well when it comes to their roster configuration so that the worst parts of those stars aren't being shown. Imagine if you swap Luka with Jalen Brunson. Imagine if you swap Luka with Shea, right? Like, how would these guys look on the Lakers with the lack of defensive support, with the lack of shot creation ability, self-shot creation ability? I don't expect role players to be able to create shots for others, but it's nice to have role players who can, hit a shot off the dribble, who can make a play getting downhill. The Lakers lack that extremely, right? Especially with guys like Austin Reeves out hurt, with Rui being in and out of the lineup over the past week, with Gabe Vincent being in and out of the lineup over the past week, right? The inconsistency just due to injuries, right? They haven't had a healthy roster at all throughout the course of this season, right? So point being is, I get that Luka's play has been frustrating, and I think there's controllables there that he has not been consistent at controlling. But also, I think if we look across the league and we start saying just everybody is better than him, We also have to look at supporting cast. You look at Jaylen Brown's supporting cast, look at Anthony Edwards' supporting cast, look at Cade Cunningham's supporting cast, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody has a better supporting cast in terms of superstars and what they need to make their things tick and allow them to be the best at what they do. Everybody has a better situation than Luka outside of Giannis, right? So let's just keep that as a talking point when we're talking about who's better than who, because that matters greatly when we're seeing these guys produce and we're seeing these guys night in and night out. And not to mention, Luka's still averaging 34, 8, and 9 or something like that on good efficiency. Could he be better? Absolutely, he could be better. But also, we have to be objective in the roster that's built around him, and it's just not a roster that's objectively what would be best suited for him to thrive, right? I don't want to say this roster is bad. I don't want to make excuses in that way, because honestly, I think basketball players should figure it out. If you're a high IQ and a good basketball player, you should end up figuring it out. And I think the Lakers will figure it out up to a point where they are still a playoff team and they're competitive in the first round, maybe make it to the second round based on matchups, who knows? But with that being said, we just got to be objective about it. Yes, has he struggled? Yes, are there things that I don't like? And it's been painful to watch. But do I also realize that in terms of roster configuration, he is getting the short end of the stick in comparison to other superstars around the league? Just the reality of it. So just take that into account when we're talking about who is better than who. That's all. Just my thoughts. Peace.